Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 91, Damian Wayne, the Son of the Bat, as requested by our present-level patron, Ariel. It's a fascinating character. And before we get started, I know last week there was a lot of pre-roll, a lot of housekeeping stuff, so I'm going to really tighten it up this week. But I do have to say, major thank you to our new mayor patron, Chad, from the Perfect Package podcast, is now a supporter of this show. So thank you, Chad. Awesome. And looking forward to getting back on another episode with you and Dave sometime in the not too distant future. Also this week's shout out in befitting the theme of this week's episode is Super Sons. Dan and Jake cover comic books, news, anything else on their minds. It's a very entertaining podcast, so go check them out. And last but not least, please, there's a whole post on our website, capesonthecouch.live, about the nominations. We are still accepting nominations for our 100th episode award show. And I also just want to add a quick note that if you are nominating for the best or worst vocal performance in a skit, you have to name the skit, because somebody just nominated Anthony for each one. And I was like, that's I appreciate the effort, but that's not quite what I was looking for. I was looking for like a specific skit. Like
that's amazing.
Like this voice in this skit, or
yeah, that basically means that they don't like my voice whatsoever, which is totally fine because I don't like my voice. Good to know.
So we're looking for particular skits. That's what we're looking for, the nomination. So you can go to our website and click on the Google Doc and fill that out. We've gotten a couple of fill-ins so far. So let's jump right to it. Damian Wayne, created by Grant Morrison and Andy Kubert in Batman number 656, September of 2006. Now this is interesting because before Damian Wayne, there was the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul, who was in Batman Son of the Demon, which was a non-canonical story, 1987, by Mike Barr and Jerry Bingham. So in that graphic novel, Bruce and Talia had a child, and so the story ends with this infant that is never explicitly named as their kid, but he's wearing a necklace, I believe, that Bruce had. So it's a sort of way to show you and this is their child. And so Grant Morrison, in coming up with his stories, as he began writing the Batman stories, as I said, in 2006, said, I'm going to bring this character into canon after Infinite Crisis. So Damian Wayne is the genetically engineered son of Bruce and Talia al Ghul, born after a night of passion where Bruce was claimed to have been drugged. Now, Grant Morrison initially said, I didn't really mean for the drugging to be part of it. It was just more of like a comment that Bruce made, and it really wasn't supposed to stick. But then Grant Morrison reaffirmed it. Later writers reaffirmed it. And so now it is canonical that Talia drugged Bruce and essentially raped him, which I know Ariel is very adamant about, that it should not have happened that way, that it is destructive to Talia's character, and so on and so forth. And again, as I said last week, if you go on Ariel's Twitter feed, it's like 80% talking about Talia al Ghul. So Damian was raised by Talia and the League of Assassins to be an incredible fighter. And then at the age of 13, Talia shows up with Damian and says, he's your son. He's your problem now. I'm out.
I feel like everything that you just said about Talia turns the male and female stereotypes in these situations completely on their head. This is...
Oh, yeah. Well, again, knowing what little I do of Talia as a character and then reading this story, I was like, Talia is way more nuanced and cerebral. And then here she's just like a lover scorned, and she's like, okay, I'm going to mess with your dad while I go off and try and take over the world, which was never really a Talia's thing,
Nope.
at least in the earlier stories.
Yeah, she was always rebellious of the idea of why on earth would you want to take over the world when you can do so many other things with your life. But as always, we end up shoehorning things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Listen to our Talia episode. And if you want to hear a potential nominee for worst vocal performance in a skit, listen to that one. But in any case, so because of his upbringing, he has zero social skills, and he believes the only way to earn his father's respect is to eliminate any rivals. So immediately, he decides he needs to kill Tim Drake, who was operating as Robin at the time. So that obviously didn't quite pan out.
Nope.
We haven't covered Tim yet, right? I believe he's one of the only Robins we haven't gotten around to Tim. I think Ariel has requested him for a later episode, but we haven't gotten to Tim yet. We've done Dick, we've done Jason, now we're doing Damian. Well,
hey.
And then somewhere off in a corner is Stephanie Brown going, hi. Mm-hmm. But in any case, so after Bruce's death, he, in the Battle for the Cal storyline, Damian sort of acts much more childish, I guess because he doesn't have his father around, until he ends up being corrected by Dick Grayson, who assumes the Batman mantle and asks Damian to serve as his Robin. So then after a battle, Damian ends up paralyzed. He's healed by Talia, who implants a device in his spine, which allows her to control his movements. But Damian and Dick manage to undo the damage. And then he is disowned by Talia, who feels that his acceptance of the Robin mantle is disrespectful to her and her family legacy. So after Bruce gets resurrected, Damian continues working alongside Dick and then joins the Teen Titans. In the New 52, he's still working as Robin, this time alongside Bruce, while Dick is working as Nightwing. And then he's killed by an adult clone of him, which is created by Talia. And then there was a whole series of battles over his corpse. Bruce finally resurrects Damian with the Chaos Shard, which is a stone that was created and controlled by Darkseid. So the resurrection gives him some superhuman strength for a brief period of time, and then it later fades. And then in DC Rebirth, he's now operating as the leader of the Teen Titans while also still serving as his father's Robin. And in the Super Sons book, he is working alongside Jonathan Kent, aka Superboy, Superman's son. And spoiler alert, they do not get along well, but it is fascinating and fun to read.
It really is. It really is. That's one of my favorites. So I'm grateful that they went that route.
And I was reading that on the Comixology Unlimited to get a better feel for Damian as a character. So I read the Grant Morrison stuff. I read a little bit of the Battle of the Cal, and then I read some of the Super Sons to get an overall feel for who Damian is as a character. So getting into the issues, I feel that I can sort of say this, even though he is a child, that Damian is almost as big of a dick as Scott.
Oh!
And that says something.
Wow.
And again, I know it's because he's a child and because of how he was raised and everything, but man, Damian Wayne is a dick. Not to be confused with Dick Grayson. But so that first issue, he is an incredibly petulant child. He thinks he knows better than everybody. He is incredibly condescending to Jonathan, to his father, to Tim, to basically everybody. And when he's with the Titans, he takes the leadership role, not out of any sense of leadership. It's because I'm the best, therefore you should listen to me.
Yep.
And he's, I think, 13 canonically when we're introduced to him and everything. So it does fit in line with the whole notion of this petulant teenager, but still. So it's, I think he is actually the youngest character we've done. I don't think we've ever done a teenager as young as Damian.
Right. Well, we've talked about characters' childhoods, but right, as an ongoing character, I'm pretty sure he's the youngest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So just to dive in then, that term petulant child can mean so many different things. And I think he checks off all the boxes, though. So let's first go to the sense of entitlement, meaning people haven't heard me use this term in a long time. He won the vaginal lottery. He got into a circumstance without any of his control where he had means, be it political power, family that had certain abilities, financial power on both sides, even though it was split, and we'll get into that. And so everything this world would make available to someone, he had at his beck and call. That doesn't make it bad. That just means that if it's not dealt with appropriately, there is a great opportunity for misuse. So you are with mom, who clearly is intelligent, strong fighter, lots of talents and lots of organizational power and money, and is part of an assassin guild. Whoops, I guess we know where that's going to head. So can't blame Damian for much of that if that's what he's predominantly exposed to. But even past that point, gets the opportunity to see a rich family with a father that has a lot of power and has other people that are at his beck and call that pretty much cater to his whims day and night, literally and night, and gets to see that firsthand. Okay, so we don't have quite a balancing act there, do we? So a lot of privilege, possible sense of entitlement. Doesn't have to be that way, but the personalities of the people that would be molding that are, let's just say, strong, both on the maternal and paternal side. And yet, I wouldn't say he's classically quote-unquote spoiled. He had to work hard. It's just that he was working hard with the expectation from both sets of parents that say, you are the elite. And if you don't carry yourself as such, you're not going to do well. So there's that added pressure. And in addition to that, when he had the opportunity to complain about something or something didn't go his way, what was the result? Was it that he failed and never got another opportunity? It was more like, no, do it again, which, yes, will foster a sense of responsibility, but also make it the idea that, hey, no matter what happens, mommy and daddy are going to be there to bail me out. And they really were willing to do that, at least on the Batman side, to the grave. Hey, man, you died? No problem. We got you. We'll bring that corpse back. So there is no sense of risk other than the idea that I have life the way it is and there's nothing that anybody else can do about it. So how does this apply to us personally? If you have a child, I know I focus so much on the actual means. That's not nearly as important as I made it sound. If you simply give a child the perception that not just that the world is their oyster and that they're unique, but that anything that they do doesn't have lasting consequence, then in a way, it makes every decision a little less meaningful. It means that they get the sense that, oh, well, if this doesn't go my way, okay, fine, I'll just do it again a different way. And they can develop a very flippant attitude about the most important things in life. So grades, whatever. It'll work itself out. Or sports, I'll do it. Now, the part that gets added on, of course, is that old saying, it's not bragging if you can back it up. He's good. He really is really good. And so now, instead of whether or not he's going to make it, it's more like, okay, he's made it, and now who's going to keep him in check? Well, we already established nobody's going to keep him in check. He has everything already. So now it's like, oh, see, you guys thought I was the best. I am the best. And now, well, I guess I'm just going to stay that way no matter what. Doesn't matter if anybody challenges me. Doesn't matter if anyone questions me. I have everything figured out. It's easy. in the weirdest way. I'm not saying his life was easy. I'm not saying his childhood was easy. He had a lot of battles. He has gone through so many things, but the perception that he has that everything is easy. And even if it's not, he can whine about it and still get something as a positive. And that's something that we've seen from plenty of children. So in other words, whether you have the talent and you can back it up, or you don't have the talent, if you whine enough, you're still going to end up with a positive result. That's kind of dangerous in the long run.
Oh, it absolutely is. It definitely is. And we've seen, I think, numerous examples, whether it's affluenza or just My Sweet 16 show on MTV or whatever it was. We've seen so many examples, real life examples of kids who think that because they come from privilege and because they're constantly told you're amazing, you're special, et cetera, and they're never, in real life, they're never tested. And I know you said that Damian has been tested and certainly does rise to the occasion, which only, I think, further fuels his ego because he knows he's good. This isn't some kid who's whining that, oh, I'm the best because daddy told me I'm special, mommy told me I'm the best, etc. But then when pressed on it, they can't actually do anything. No, Damian can back it up. So, as you said, it ain't bragging if you can back it up. That just makes him worse. So the next thing, speaking of mommy and daddy, is split family child rearing. Here's a kid who, for the first 13 years of his life, was raised with his mother. And I say raised in the sense that she was present in his life, but based on this interpretation of Talia and based on the way that she is shown at this stage, it's evident that she was not a doting mother. She certainly does love him in the way that she knows how. She does care for him in some regard. And also there's that utilitarian aspect that he is a tool for her, but he has no exposure to his father, only through reputation, and then immediately is left with him to say, okay, he's your problem now. And then it's a whole other host of things where now Bruce has to figure out, how do I cope with this child who doesn't respect me, who doesn't want to be here. I don't know what to do with him because Bruce didn't have a stellar childhood himself. By the time Bruce was Damian's age, Bruce was an orphan and being raised by Alfred. So Bruce doesn't have a strong history to draw from of parenting himself. For blood children, I'll say that. I think he's done a fantastic job with the Robins over time, but I digress. Damian is, in essence, a child of divorce, almost.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure we'll get into that in the out-of-universe treatment, but I'll let you talk a little bit about split family child rearing.
So there are two types of splits. What you just described is the sequential split. You're with one parent and then you end up with a different parent later on. And that can happen however many times. But then there's also concomitant splits, meaning you're going to spend a certain amount of time with both parents during your child's raised years. So I'd like to talk about both only to introduce the topic both ways, but I'll obviously focus on Damian because of the way his went through. So we already know that the majority of your worldview is going to be shaped by the people that you deal with two ways. Most commonly, who's earliest and also who's there the longest. So that tells you already. Talia and the League of Assassins already have a leg up in terms of how he's going to develop, and you did a great job describing that with his lack of social skills. So we're already stuck behind the eight ball. Then the next group of people that usually foster development is not the parents, especially around those early teenage years. It's your peers. and who are his peers if he's with Bruce. It's gonna be Nightwing, other Robin, any of the enemies they face.
Other Robin.
I was gonna say any of the other enemies they face. Later on, Teen Titans, all those people. So not as much Bruce. So the parent ends up in this role that maybe they didn't expect, but it's not the same because they don't have to automatically be the forefront for most of the waking hours of that child's life. They're almost a consultant or an advisor. I don't mean to sound cold when I say that. It's just, it's not going to be the same thing as if they were there from birth. So we see how Damian handles this. He fights with his peers. He doesn't consider them to be on his level, which goes back to the first point, being the petulant child. He just looks at them as either threats or subordinates. So when you look at it that way, he had, in theory, one parent and one consultant with a whole bunch of other people that he's trying to make sure he remains alpha dog. So you're not going to get much of that extra growth unless his peers are strong enough to handle that. And good news, his peers are strong enough to handle that. And there are times he gets, this is a medical thing, he got pimped. PIMP stands for put in my place. It's something that, basically that residents do to medical students and attendings do to residents, just to let them know that you think you're all that, you think you're smart, but you don't know everything just yet. And I'm going to ask you some questions that you're going to get stumped on, and you're going to research it, and you're going to grow from it.
I don't know what you heard about me.
So, mind you, personally, I hated that, but it still had its purpose. I'm not saying that's the way everything has to be, but that's pretty much what Damian went through. And I'll give credit. He does show some growth in these comics because of that. He gets put in his place once in a while, I'm sorry, I can't go so far as to say he develops humility, but he at least recognizes that there may or may not be a certain thing he needs to strengthen in his life and in his character. So I'll give that credit. Now, to go back, though, to the other thing that I mentioned, the idea of having, let's just say, divorced parents co-parenting. In that case, it can lead to so many drastic differences, especially with the idea that from the start, the parents don't get along. They may be friends, they may be friendly, but something happened that made sure that relationship did not last on its own. And now those two people are going to be responsible for the well-being of this particular child. And that child, unfortunately, is now in a position where they may have to make certain choices. Some things are beyond their control. They don't get to choose. Like the judge of the courts, when they do the divorce, usually has to figure out who gets what when. And then the parents honoring it comes into play, which is sometimes a very difficult dynamic. And there may be some infighting amongst the parents. Did you know that daddy does this? Did you know that mommy used to have that? Or things to undermine the other parent. We'd like to think that doesn't happen, but it's pretty darn common. And the child now has the unfortunate situation where they either have to accept the information or they have to reject it, and they have to do it for each parent. So children deal with this in different ways. Some children are completely obliging. What it means is they accept everything that both parents say. And they're often the ones that will give that information to the other parent, and it just leads to more fights because basically the parents now realize they can use the child as a megaphone. There are children that are just simply going to pick one over the other. I want to be with mommy. I want to be with daddy, whatever. And from that point, they may be civil with the other parent, but they're never going to have that same connection. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I mean, if it's an abusive situation with one parent, then it's natural and expected that that child wouldn't want to be around that parent. But what happens when the dynamic is different? What happens when we almost deal with a Stockholm syndrome where the child actually wants to be with the abusive parent and rejects the non-abusive parent? And that's a whole battle in and of itself. So it gets complicated. It gets really messy really quick depending on what's going on. And this is one of those situations where I'm not saying this just as a professional, but also as a person that's seen it in plenty of relationships in his life with many people that he knows. So from that standpoint, I'm grateful to say that for the most part, I've seen it work out fairly well. But there are some times where it's not always that great. And of course, to get back to the actual psyche of the child, these are things where we think we know in the moment if it's going to work out or not. But we really don't. We really don't. People change their minds as an adult, or they process information, maybe through therapy or maybe just on their own, about things that happened in their childhood. And they say, wow, that's really messed up. Or wow, I can't believe I supported this parent when in reality they were doing the right thing, or whatever. I mean, it has so many variations. But the point is that level of complexity for what's supposed to be, in theory, a simple childhood really starts to create its own emotional situations and emotional tensions that don't just automatically go away the second you turn 18.
But 18-year-olds are adults. So once I'm an adult, that means I know everything, right?
Well,
right?
According to the U.S. Army.
Oof. Let's not touch that one. So the last issue for Damian is his first exposure to different viewpoints. And I think this is handled very well in the Super Sons book, because Jonathan Kent is such a fantastic foil to Damian in that regard, because Jonathan is his father. He's a little more, shall I say, impetuous. He's a little more, brash, but because he is still a kid. He's 10. He's a 10-year-old kid who's got superpowers, but he's being raised by Clark Kent and Lois Lane. So he's got that good heart in him. And this immediately puts him at odds with Damian, who is more ruthless and efficient than even his father. So you've really got diametrically opposed people here, and it plays so well, so beautifully together. And it's very telling that Damian has little use for John outside of his powers. Again, he views John as a tool to be used to win. And he slowly, and I mean like glacially slow, starts to come around to John. But it's this idea that some people may have a different viewpoint than I do, but how can I use that to my advantage? And it's slowly starting to get to him that, oh, maybe people are individuals and don't have to just do what I say because of who I am and what I can do, etc. So, and again, some of this, I'm sure, is immaturity and so on, and maybe part of issue 1, but I think this issue can speak to people no matter the age. It's just how you handle being exposed to a different viewpoint. I think, frankly, says a lot about your character.
The good news is, even when we say it's character or personality or whatever, these things can adapt, these things can change, which is ironic because the biggest issue with this whole situation is first exposure to different viewpoints goes immediately up against nostalgia bias or pre-existing experience. So we are honed to survive for centuries as a species. So if you've gone through something for the past 10, 20, 30 years of your life, there's a good chance that if you see something similar, you're going to react the same way because it allowed you to live. When you're still young, you're trying to figure out just exactly what that is. And the only cues you have besides your own experience are obviously the people that are around you and tell you their experience. So they're going to give their viewpoint, which you are then going to more than likely accept until it's challenged in some way. Now, there is the beauty of adolescence that allows for teenagers to question just about everything. It's a very normal part of the process. And I think that's wonderful because it is going to allow for exposure. The problem, of course, though, is whether you're 13 or you're 93, you still go with your gut, meaning you still go with what you know. And so we have a natural, immediate reflex that when something doesn't fit how we view life and how we view what we've already done, we will defend ourselves to the core. We will put up every possible intellectual, rational and irrational defense mechanism to protect ourselves. Because if we don't, the idea that something that we hold now is wrong might imply, not automatically, but there is a chance it might imply that everything in that particular topic that we know has been wrong. And that means that your whole existence as it stands may not be what you thought it was. So if we don't have our sense of self, then we're at risk of emotionally destroying ourselves in an instant. No one would be an advocate for that, so we don't do it. Of course, there is the much more nuanced, subtle point, which is this is all along a spectrum of experience. And the idea that your individual, unique, once-in-a-lifetime experience is going to be exactly the same as anyone else's is a fallacy. And therefore, whenever you meet someone else's experience, you're going to put it on a range. And if you do that, you're going to notice that that range is almost like a bell curve, meaning a lot of people have things that are very similar. You have a few people that have experiences that are vastly different, but there's always going to be a gradient where there's someone else or a group of people that ends up blurring and blending those experiences to the point that everyone can understand each other. It's just that it's very difficult when you have it 1v1 because you don't have those intermediaries to immediately see. That's what I've noticed with all ages, not just adolescents, but we've mentioned this before. What's one of the big factors when it comes to adolescence that makes it much more of a powder keg compared to any other age group?
Hormones?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. Because that changes not just our brain chemistry, but it changes our ability to act on our brain chemistry. Our impulsivity goes through the roof. And so you get a young kid with superpowers matched up against a young kid that's trained as an assassin, one of whom is taught from the start that even though he has these abilities, he needs to remain humble at all times, compared to another one that even when they tell him that he needs to keep a low profile at times, he needs to make sure that when he encounters someone, they know he's elite, because a battle can be won just on sight, and be as calculated as you possibly can. And the idea, on one hand, of people saying that every life is absolutely precious and you have to do everything to sacrifice for those people and just do what you can in the most wholesome way possible, as opposed to there are some people that are the dregs of the world. And although you should not try and kill them, whatever happens to them before that point is totally on them, and leave the proper authorities to deal with them as they may. What is the tying factor there? That doesn't seem like there's any way to bridge that, except for the idea that with both sides, you point out that if we don't act with what we have been given and try and protect as many people as possible from the evils of our world, and do it in a way that we know is above and beyond the basic authorities that people seem to understand, because there's so many possibilities that they're not even aware of. And we have the ability to do this in a way that no one had ever conceived of before us. And the planet will be better for it? all of a sudden, neither one of them sounds that different. But it takes someone else to say that usually, not the people that are actually talking to one another. And I'm not talking about superheroes now.
Oh, I knew you weren't. And just based on where you were going with that and the way you were describing everything, I was like, this is eerily timely.
It's timeless.
Yes. Even better said. But I think it speaks to, going back to your point about gradients of experience and things of that nature, I think it is one of the most important things that it behooves us then to have a wide range of people who have had an incredibly diverse amount of experiences, because the more diverse your exposure is, the more nuanced that bell curve is going to look, and the wider and more encompassing it is. If your experience is very limited and you only know people who have gone through almost the exact same thing as you, when you do inevitably meet somebody whose experience is vastly outside the norm, you're not going to be able to understand it because you can't conceive of it. Whereas if you start from a younger age and you are exposed to a variety of viewpoints and a variety of experiences, when you do meet somebody whose experience is vastly different than yours, you have a much better capacity to understand where they're coming from and how to engage with that person, because it's not something brand new. Everybody's going to have some sort of new experience, but you get what I'm saying here? That it's okay. As long as you understand, I'm not entirely 100% certain that our audience will get what I'm driving at, but it's important to have friends with different viewpoints, with different lifestyles, with different experiences, so that you can put it in a better context, because context is everything. And so as long as you can contextualize these experiences, I think it's going to be better off for everybody, because then you won't, and I may catch a little flack for saying this, you won't blow things out of proportion, because you'll be able to understand, okay, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't as big a deal as I thought. If you try and keep it in perspective, it's going to work out better for you. And at least for me personally, I'm all about keeping things in perspective, that you have to try and balance. Okay, yes, I'm not saying I can't be upset by this thing, but it's not the end of the world. It's not, it's not going to ruin the rest of my week. I may be mad about it, and then I let that feeling go. And also conversely, that I may be excited about something, but also understand that others around me may not be as excited as I am. That's something that I personally still struggle with, the notion that not everybody's going to love the things that I love in the exact same way that I love them.
So I actually have something I want to directly reference. Are you familiar with the oatmeal?
Of course.
Okay. So there is a long form comic of the oatmeal. You're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. And
didn't he just win an award for that?
There you go. So I just wanted to make sure that I bring that up, because don't worry about me as a doctor or whatever saying this. My point is, I think he does a better job saying what I said more succinctly and giving clear examples that I don't really want to get into, because I think it takes away from the rest of the podcast. But I think it's an excellent exercise in what you and I were trying to get at. So if anybody wants to look that up, there is a clean version, there's a profanity version. Either way, it still makes the point very well. So that would be my recommendation.
I'll put a link to it in the show notes, so our listeners can take a look at it and really read it. I've read it back when he originally posted, and I think, like I said, he just got an award for it, a Saturn Award or a Peabody Award or something along those lines. I'll have to take a look. But in any case, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stay tuned.
Remember the first time you held a controller? That first cartridge you blew into so you could get that stinking game to work? What about your first comic you read? The first time you saw Star Wars years and years and years ago? Now you're an adult, working full-time to provide for you and your family. But even after all of your hard work, you still make it your quest to spend time with your kids, hoping they find even the slightest interest in some of the things that you had grown up loving. Video games, movies, comics, My Little Ponies. Join me, Kyle Federline, every Wednesday morning on my quest as I discuss with guests what it's like to raise a kid and watch them take after some of our own interests as kids, or have no interest at all in the things that we had grown up loving. This is Parent Quest. Head on over to Anchor and ask me your questions, leave me a voice message, and follow me on Twitter at ParentQuestPod, Instagram and Facebook at ParentQuest.
What is the perfect package? Well, it could be anything. Join Chad and Dave as they dive into the Perfect Package podcast. From the perfect first date to the perfect Old West gang.
I knew it was coming. I was like, where's my Hateful Eight pick from him?
Damn right. Of course it's going to be in there.
Each episode, Chad and Dave get 5 picks to create the perfect package. Then it's up to the listeners to decide who will win each episode of the Perfect Package podcast. So get ready to explore everything from road trips to bank heists.
All right, I felt like we're on a
dark.
Yeah, because I thought this was a normal heist. We might be breaking into like a hospital to steal a heart right now.
The Perfect Package podcast is full of laughs, some healthy competition, and a side of interesting tidbits. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Meredith Finch, and you're listening to Capes on the Couch.
Now we're back. So treatment in universe for Damian Wayne. I know we're taking a bit of a humorous tilt on things for the skit, but I'd be very curious to see, realistically speaking, how you would address Damian and all of his idiosyncrasies and character foibles. I'm being tactful when I say that in a treatment session.
So because I know that all of this technology is available in universe and he's had these types of encounters, I am going so far out right now. This is the most wild thing I've ever considered. So I don't want to disrupt the lives of most of the other characters, but I do want them. So if I can somehow get clones of Jonathan Kent, of Tim Drake, of Nightwing, of Talia al Ghul, of Bruce Wayne, and send them all with Damian into the Phantom Zone and leave them there for an indefinite amount of time and only pull Damian out. Because what I want is I want him to be exposed to just how different all of those people are and how all of them view things so far from how he views things and how they would bicker with each other. I'm not trying to advocate the fighting. I'm saying that when you have nothing but time for yourself, and yes, it's almost like prison, when you have nothing but time for yourself, you have no one to blame but yourself. And I think that it would give an opportunity for someone like him to take a different perspective because he wouldn't have a choice. That would be the ultimate pressure cooker situation. And of course, if this all backfires and he escapes the Phantom Zone on his own before I release him, then I think we'd end up with a Superman Prime situation. But, you know, once again, we're talking about comic universe. I'm willing to take that chance.
Okay. Well, you're willing to take that risk. I'm sure as hell not, but... So, out of universe then, spoiled child of privilege to divorced parents who thinks that by virtue of his last name and who his father is.
Oh my God.
I see you putting your head in your hands, but I mean, this could apply to any number of...
There's so many people. I know.
There are so many examples. And I'm pretty sure half of them have their own TV show on MTV or TLC at this point. But, or if they don't, then they're being scouted by reality TV show producers. But God help you, how do you talk to that person? How do you teach them empathy? How do you teach them? How do you bring them down? And I maybe I'm just coming at this from the layman's perspective. How do you break their containment bubble of the world revolving around themselves? How do you break that egocentrism?
I need to know whether or not they've even heard another viewpoint. If we're talking true bubble, that's a little rough. And I hate to say this, but it would be very difficult for me to take on that case as a long-standing case because my personality does not mesh well with that. I'm just being honest. I would try and find them the proper therapist for that. If they have been exposed to other viewpoints, and actually this is a great point. Many times people come into therapy because of being exposed to different viewpoints, and it created a level of cognitive dissonance that led to emotional disruption. So it didn't necessarily have to be as dramatic as this is the first time I heard about the plight of someone in danger or someone in an underprivileged situation or whatever. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as that. But sometimes when people get exposed to something and they think their entire world is collapsing, they want to do something about it. So a lot of times it's more like, hey, doc, I need some help because just get rid of my anxiety. That's basic. I'm like, okay, I can give a pill for that, but of course that's not really the point. The point is, what is it that scares you? Or what is it that makes you uncomfortable? Or what is it that makes you sad? Some people do actually get the sense of empathy and don't know what to call it. They just know that out of nowhere, they got this really bad stomach ache after they heard someone speak about something they weren't even aware of in the world, and it crushes them. So sometimes it's more of a positive. Like you're saying, okay, you've started to develop that. Let's see where it goes. But the biggest point that I've noticed that has people change, and I think both of us can recognize this, it doesn't have to be necessarily about the topics we're talking about. When you have your own child, or when you're responsible for someone else that's younger than you. I know if we're talking about children, it's a different story. Like, an adolescent with a child, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying just the broad spectrum in general of someone going through this that has never been exposed to certain plights in the world. That can really be the impetus for someone to get treatment. And if that's the case, it's more like, well, tell me the person that they want you to see. Give me the script, give me the sketch, like write it out for me. And it becomes a series of statements that allow me to review their core beliefs. And I forgot where I apologize because I'm not saying this is my idea. I'm stealing this. It's I am a person that. That's how you start every statement. So in other words, the things that you want to believe about yourself, whether they're true or not. So I am the person that cares about others. I am the person that takes extra time off for my family. I am the person that does the dishes even when nobody asks me to. It can be as basic or as profound as you want it to be. But when people get challenged in a way that they didn't expect, and I'm not talking about Twitter comments or other things that are superficial outside of the person, because those things don't move the needle. It's usually something that is a direct personal contact that they didn't expect to have. So once that happens, I use those first statements. I am the person that, and then if it's really that unique, it's I will be the person that. So you give them the goal. What is your next step? What is it that you want to change? What is it that's different? And to be honest, that's usually when people just stop seeing me because they don't really want to go that far. If they really do, then I make sure they get referred out to the proper person. But it's dicey. It really is, because I know we discussed this with so many other narcissists, but you end up potentially just shattering who they think they are. And if you're not careful, you'll just put them in a worse depression or even like rage or anger. So It's dicey.
Yeah, the complete deconstruction of self-image is very potentially dangerous and potentially damaging.
I think
So.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you acknowledge the potential issues, no pun intended, that are associated with something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also something to get away from the idea of privilege versus not privilege and all that. COVID has actually brought that out in a lot of people because when you're at home by yourself, you only got yourself. And if you're not happy by yourself, who are you going to blame? So a lot of people had to do a lot of introspection recently. And I think it's coming to the forefront now that all of the other individuals, family members, friends, coworkers, bosses, all those things that were considered to be the negative in your life. Like if you just fix them, everything's going to be great. May not be as accurate as you thought. You got everything you wanted. You were working for, if you were one of those people, if you got what you wanted, you were working from home, you were still getting your salary. So you weren't underprivileged there. You had your family members at home with you. So you weren't going to blame that you didn't get time with them. You had food. You stocked up ahead of time. You had supplies. You never experienced any of the negatives of COVID in that sense. And yet you were still unhappy. Then that says something. It says something scary. And now would be the opportunity, I guess you want to call it a call to action. Be honest with yourself. If that still happened to you, despite things going, quote unquote, your way, it's not your fault. But as I've said so many times, it is your problem.
Absolutely. And I've noticed that about myself as I complained for years that I did not like my job due to my long commute. Well, the commute is not a problem anymore. Now my commute is from my bedroom to the living room. And I have to say, there are days when my job could be a little annoying at times, but the anger and the frustration that I had is largely dissipated. And I don't dislike what I do. I just don't like where I have to do it or how long it takes me to get to where I need to do it. If I could do it from my living room, I'm cool with it because it means I get to spend more time with my son and my wife and my family because that's what's important to me. Not spending 70 hours in a car twice a day driving to and from the office. So, perfect example. But let's take all of this and see what happens when we get Damian Wayne on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Damian. I'm Dr. Issues.
I wasn't enthralled by the idea of wasting time here, but after hearing your name, you've instantly lost whatever shred of credibility you might have had.
Glad to see we're getting off on the right foot.
I'm sure you think you're very good at what you do, but it's not worth doing. If I wanted to con rubes out of time and money while convincing them they've somehow improved themselves, I could have easily become a psychologist.
First off, I'm a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. Second, I'm very good at what I do. Third, if you're so opposed to this entire notion, why are you even here?
Father suggested it. After what you did for Jason, Alfred, and Dick, he thought it might be good for me. My mother, however, does not carry a high opinion of you.
That's not surprising. But let me ask you, why do you feel this is a waste of your time?
Because I'm already a better Batman than my father. There's nothing you could offer me that would help in any way.
Ah, so you've peaked. I can see the tombstone. Here lies Damian Wayne, better than his father at an early age and nothing else for the rest of his life.
Nice try. It's not like I lack self-confidence. Just because I'm better than someone else doesn't mean I can't improve more.
But improve at what? Philanthropy, justice, empathy, mercy?
Wow, are you dense. Missed the mark on all of them so far.
So how do you solve the paradox? You said better, that's the stuff that your father cares about from what I gather within your bunch.
I don't have his views. I don't care about any of that. That's why I'm better. I'm not bogged down by sappy crap.
Too weak to carry it, huh?
too smart to drag it along. You can't handle me.
I don't have to. Everyone's already done it and you don't even know it.
What do you mean?
Ever notice when people roll their eyes at you when you're not in a fight?
They're just intimidated by how amazing I am.
Sure. Ever notice that people tolerate your choice to use lethal force, but if anybody else tried it, they'd be out of Batman's favor forever?
I have the guts to do what they don't.
Right.
Stop doing that. God, you're so annoying. What is your point?
The people around you, the adults in the room, they see you for what you are. You're a toddler throwing tantrums. I mean, seismic tantrums, but tantrums nonetheless. You know, they know you'll come around. It's only a matter of time.
No, that would imply that they think I'm immature. I'm an assassin-trained nightmare. My mother puppeteered me as a weapon because I'm awesome. The Titans trust me to clean up their messes. I'm so good the League cloned me to use me.
See the pattern?
Okay, hotshot, you got me on one point.
Want to stop it?
What, so you can extort more money and time out of me for more sessions? No way. Just because my father has considerable resources doesn't mean you can use me as a piggy bank.
Well, I bet your father wouldn't be so quick to quit. I bet he'd need at least, like, one more session before he thought it was useless.
I can do 2 then.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't get me started on, like, someone like Nightwing. I mean, he tracks his affirmations and his leg day routines with me.
I'll see you next month.
Plus, I heard there was this one other, Superboy, or...
I will do twice as many sessions as Superboy. Do you hear me?
Well, if you insist.
Wait, why are you smiling?
Because you're right. I am very good at what I do.
Father will be disappointed with me.
Actually, I think he'd be very proud of you admitting that you can't do it all by yourself. You figured it out faster than he did.
See? I am a better Batman than he is. Why can't he see that?
Oh, boy.
So, for all his blustering about how what you do is stupid and you're not good and it's useless, reverse psychology.
I'm sorry, teenagers everywhere, but we usually get you pretty badly with that.
Yeah. I know my parents used that quite a bit. Sometimes it still works on me, and I'm 38 years old, so just more in the, if you tell me not to do something, if you say I can't do it, I'll do it just to, spite my, cut my nose off to spite my face kind of deal.
Yeah, to be honest, there's barely a harder working person than a person that's called spoiled to their face. Seriously. Try it. See what happens.
True story. So recommended reading for this week. We will put links to the Amazon books in the show notes, but the New 52 Batman and Robin and Super Sons by Peter Tomasi. So both of those I think are excellent encapsulations of Damian Wayne as a character. So next episodes are Apocalypse, the X-Men villain, Baphomet from The Wicked and the Divine, and Quipping. So we have another review to read. This is Bat Dan 22. Fan for life. I enjoy the way they tackle pop culture on the show. The hosts are fun and engaging. The topics are right up my alley. Just a lot of fun being had by those who make it and those who listen.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like us pretty much to a T. So once again, reminder that the nominations for our 100th episode award show are still open. You can go to our website, capesonthecouch.live/nominations, and there will be a link there to fill out the nominations for a number of categories. I'm looking forward to seeing what some of our fans pick for the various episodes. And also just I thought about doing this at the top of the show, but I wanted to keep it short and concise. On August 22nd, for those longtime listeners of the show who know I'm very involved with Extra Life and Children's Miracle Network hospital charities, on August 22nd, I will be live streaming a new challenge. It is Tabletop Gaming Weekend, and as a result, I will be putting a 1,000-piece puzzle together all by myself. It is all of Marvel characters. And if you go to extra-life.org and you do a search for my name, Anthony Sitko, I'll also have a link to my page in the show notes, and you donate, every $10 earns you a guess as to how long it will take me to finish the puzzle. And as I said, I'll be live streaming and you'll be able to see my progress throughout the day. It's going to start 9 a.m. on August 22nd. The person who guesses the closest without going over will win a $100 Amazon gift card. So that's your little incentive there to go to extra-life.org, search for me, donate at least $10. For every $10, you get another guess. So if you donate $20, you get 2 guesses, so on and so forth. So, Doc, your wife already donated.
Oh, way to out me. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying, because I see you sitting in there with the puzzled look on your face. You're like, Yeah, your wife already generously donated. She hasn't offered her guesses yet. That's the key thing. I mean, if you want to donate, I'll be glad to accept the donations for charity. But I figure if I'm trying to garner more and more donations, I got to give you something.
Yep.
So $10, and you can guess how long it's going to take me to do a 1,000-piece puzzle all by myself. So I'll have the link up in the show notes. Just wanted to throw that out there since, it's coming up pretty soon. So that's going to do it. As always, you can find all of our episodes on our website, capesonthecouch.live. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Capes on the Couch. And as we said last week, please share, engage with us. We love hearing from you. If you want to email us, capesonthecouch@gmail.com, or send us a direct message at any one of the aforementioned social media groups. We have a Discord. You can engage with us. We have a Patreon, a TeePublic. Thank you again to Chad, our newest patron. I have to figure out another goal, what's going to happen when we hit $100 in our Patreon, because I feel like once we hit that, we need to give something more to the fans. We're already doing 2 trade paperback reviews a month. I don't know how much more we want to up that, but we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. We'll figure it out. We'll think of something.
Yep.
And let us know if you want us to join TikTok, because I've been hearing things that this is apparently it's a good venue for discussing the mental health and pop culture. So if you have a TikTok, let us know. Let us know if that's a venue we should be pursuing.
Yeah,
whether or not we want to give our information to the Chinese government.
I'm all down with the TikTok. It's all fresh and cool and hip with those youngins.
I used to be hip and with it, and they changed what it was. And now what's cool is scary to me, and it'll happen to you. I know I butchered that, but you get the idea. Are people still doing the Dougie or?
Oh my God!
Or no? What was it? Oh
no!
What's the one where? Damn it! Where
what's funny, because the fact that
the one person is dancing and all of a sudden the beat drops and then everybody's doing the craziness. What was that?
Oh my God! What, like a Harlem Shake?
That's it. The Harlem Shake.
Oh my God! The fact that you were struggling so hard to get that makes it even better, because it means it was genuine. That's yes. We never claimed to be the coolest people in the room, or at least I never did. So
no, me neither.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we should bring back the Harlem Shake for TikTok.
Yes, and you'll catch me dabbing as I describe depression. Yeah, that's great. We are oh my God, we're horrible.
Could do the cat daddy.
Oh.
See, if you're watching us on the live stream, you can actually watch me do the cat daddy.
Stop.
And dabbing.
No.
A Vogue.
What?
All right, that's going to do it. Doc, any other parting words of wisdom or puns you want to add for this week?
I was trying so hard to think of one, and I'm not going to force it. I don't have one, so I'll just say this. There's nothing wrong with giving your children everything in the world, but make sure that they know that they're actually loved and cared for first. And that's really how you avoid them being spoiled.
True story. Spoken like a true parent. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.